Hi, my name is Amy Cooper, and this is my interpersonal communication project for studies in interpersonal communication at Liberty University. Next slide. The outline of my project is as follows: to identify my overarching goals, to define communication and interpersonal communication, give a description of my personal background, to identify my behavioral blend and the positive and negative influences it has on the way I communicate with others, identify the barriers and ways to be triumphant over the barriers I have when trying to communicate or listen effectively, identify internal and external noise pollutions, and state my plan of action. Next slide. My overarching goals are to improve my listening and communication skills and to open up more to enlarge communication with people during conversations. Next slide. Communication is best viewed as the continuous, complex, collaborative process of verbal and nonverbal meaning making. Next slide. Listening is a method of taking in information. It is used far more than reading and writing combined. Listening is a learned skill and is a channel used most often for learning. Next slide. Unfortunately, listening is the least understood function of all. The biggest misconception about listening is that it is the same as hearing. This misconception hinders us from effectively developing listening skills and being effective communicators. Next slide. Listening is a crucial technique. By learning the dynamics of listening, you can prevent misunderstanding and misconceptions and increase your ability to work well and productive with others. Next slide. Interpersonal communication is a subset of communication in general that does not happen all the time. The main characteristics of interpersonal communication is that the people involved are contacting each other's. Next slide. Collaboration, choices, cultures, identities, conversation, and nexting combined together make up communication. Interpersonal communication occurs between family and friends while on the telephone, online, among jurors, at a party, across a bargaining table, or even during public speeches or presentations. Next slide. My behavioral blend. My personality type on graph 1 is S. My personality type on graph 2 is SI. Next slide. My personal background. I am an African American female, mother of a 3-year-old little boy. I am a former teacher of 1 to 4-year-olds at a child development center. I am currently employed at DHEC as a nutritionalist for the WIC program. I was born and raised in the United Methodist Church. Children and cooking are my passion. I'm a very kind, considerate, and caring person, and I come from a very close-knit family. My behavioral blend. Next slide. My personality S. This is expected of me: to be more sensitive and submissive, to be still and quiet, to be steady and stable, to be least likely to have conflict because I expect everyone to appreciate my kind, nice, and caring attitude. Next slide. Characteristics of my personality when SI type. I am very people oriented and friendly. My passion is getting along and supporting others. I am outgoing and reserved. I am active and passive. I want everyone to get along and be happy. Positive influences of my personality blend. People love to work with me because I am very supportive and positive. I have a humble spirit and quiet demeanor makes me well liked. I am inspirational, stable, sensitive, and forgiving. I accept and represent others well. I am quiet and often reserved. Responses make me sought after as a good listener. I have strong people skills. I have the ability to make people feel good and comfortable. I work long and hard without needing much recognition, and I am a loyal friend. Next slide. Some negative influences of my behavioral blend is that sometimes I am too tolerant and forgiving. I tend to compromise more than I should. Taking a stand and being firm is not easy for me. I can be insecure and not willing to speak out or be noticed in a crowd, and I can be very timid and soft spoken when put on the spot. These negative influences lead to my kindness being taken for granted and advantage of at times. Next slide. Barriers in communication. According to Burley Allen, a listening barrier exists when someone hears what he wants to hear and not what is really communicated. Next slide. Barriers to overcome. Biased listening is a barrier that I have to overcome in order to be a better listener. I have to stop forming opinions about what is being said to me and genuinely listen to what is being said. Often negative experiences from my past interfere with my present experiences, creating another barrier. I plan to overcome this barrier by not letting negative experiences from my past cloud my judgment or prevent me from fully listening to what is being said during the conversation. Next slide. Emotions. My emotions are another barrier I have to overcome during communications. My emotions become very high when my hot buttons are pushed. Once something is said that I strongly disagree with, I stop listening. I hear what the person is saying, but I'm not really listening to what they have to say. It goes in one ear and comes out the other, and I'm just waiting for them to stop talking so I can tell them what's on my mind. I will work on not developing the flat brain theory of emotions when I am communicating with others. The emotions that develop in my stomach and heart clash with each other because of the different feelings. This makes it even harder for me to concentrate, think clearly, or even listen effectively to what is being said during the conversation. Next slide. Another barrier I have to work on is interrupting. I will utilize the biting my tongue method to avoid cutting the other person off when I'm trying to make my point and continue to listen effectively to what they're saying to eliminate any understandings and wait until they're finished to speak. Next slide. Noise pollution. Things that distract us from listening effectively at level 1, Burley Allen. There are two different types of noise pollution, internal and external. Next slide. Internal noise pollutions consist of biased listening, emotional listening, hearing what you want to hear. Some solutions to overcome these types of internal noise are to listen genuinely without letting personal opinions block the listening process, and to develop a better understanding of thinking and feeling and how it affects us and the ways we communicate to reduce and calm the discomfort and the storm that is taking place inside our body. Next slide. External pollution. External pollutions include loud noise, speaking too fast and rambling, and not speaking loud enough. Some solutions to these external pollutions are to find a quiet thinking spot so we can relax and refocus, to speak slowly and clearly, be specific, and to ask questions if we do not understand what is being said, and to speak clear and loud or use a microphone so everyone is able to hear us clearly. Next slide. My plan of action. I plan to seek God first when making changes dealing with the way I speak, think, act, and react, which will be the first and most important change. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 3:6. My plan of action, next slide. Awareness is a vital first step. It is difficult to change something we are not aware of. I plan to become more aware of my barriers when communicating and listening by acknowledging them, and start making them less of a burden by working towards listening more effectively and communicating effectively. According to Burley Allen, being aware of habits can help people stop them. Next slide. I also plan to pray more and ask the Lord to remold my ways of thinking so that I can change the way I think, act, react, and listen and communicate with others. Therefore, when barriers that usually hinder me from listening effectively and being an effective communicator, I will be able to overlook the barriers that hinder me. Next slide. I plan to develop better listening skills to help me clarify and understand the messages that are being sent to me. I plan to utilize a technique called reflection. It is a technique in which the receiver restates the key information that the sender has sent for the purpose of gaining clarity. This technique will enable me to develop a better understanding of what is being said and let the person know that I was listening to what they were saying. Next slide. Dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1, chapter 19. And this concludes my interpersonal communication project.